I will do the best I can in this video to not raise the volume of my voice too much, but no promises. Sorry, sometimes I have to emphasize my points because they need to be emphasized. Well, this fantasy football draft tip series, after a little bit of a hiatus, continues. And today I want to tell you, buyer beware. Beware rookie wide receivers. I understand that as football fans, the NFL draft is a fascinating component of the year-long NFL cycle or calendar. I get it. I understand it. Rookies. These are new faces. These are fresh faces, potentially the future stars of your franchise. And you can't wait to see what these guys can do. And this attitude carries over to fantasy football as well, as players are trying to sit there and find that steal, find that bargain, find that guy that way outproduces his draft slot. A guy you took late ends up producing like a second, third, or fourth round pick. Everybody's looking for that type of guy. But every year I see it in fantasy football draft rooms. I see rookie wide receivers, in particular first round rookie wide receivers, get drafted way too damn high. And I'm here to tell you, stop. Don't do it. Learn from the mistakes of others of the past. And here's what I mean. The past 3 drafts, there's been a total of, I believe, 9 wide receivers taken in the first round. That's 9. 3 each year in 2011, 2012, and 2013. And in those last 3 years, only one of those wide receivers had 1,000 yards as a rookie, and that was A.J. Green in 2011. He had 1,057 yards, I believe it was, and 7 touchdowns, and that's a special talent. Julio Jones, who was taken 2 picks after him by the Atlanta Falcons, he didn't even have 1,000 yards. Yeah, he had 959, and he had 8 touchdowns. But still, when I look at where those players were drafted 3 years ago, I saw A.J. Green and Julio Jones being drafted 3rd, 4th, 5th round. People were drafting these guys in a lot of cases as fantasy number 2 wide receivers, and in some cases as their first fantasy wide receiver. And I guarantee you a lot of those people, a lot of those teams ended up, if they did make the fantasy football playoffs for their league, they didn't last very long. They overdrafted these rookies, and there's just no reason to do it. Like I look at 2012, Justin Blackmon was taken 5th overall by the Jaguars. He had a solid rookie year, 865 yards on 64 catches and 5 touchdowns. Problem is, again, he was drafted pretty high, somewhere probably between the 5th to 8th rounds, all the while a guy that in most leagues wasn't even drafted, a T.Y. Hilton, had 861 yards and 7 touchdowns. So he technically scored more than the guy who was taken 5th overall. And you look at last year's draft, Tavon Austin, DeAndre Hopkins, Cordero Patterson were all outscored by 3rd-round picks, Keenan Allen, and in a couple of cases outscored by a 3rd-round pick of the Cowboys, Terrence Williams. And in the case of Tavon Austin, I saw people envisioning him being this, dynamic weapon right away as a rookie, and overdrafting him to the hilt, taking him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, drafting him like he was going to be a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 instead of being a wide receiver 4 or 5 in fantasy, or maybe at worst a flex position player that covers a bye week. Same thing with DeAndre Hopkins. And all the while, guys like Keenan Allen and Terrence Williams in most leagues weren't even drafted. And why do I say that? Because every league I was in last year, Keenan Allen and Terrence Williams both were on the waiver wires and were picked up at some point in time, and sometimes picked up, dropped, and picked up by somebody else again. How foolish and stupid would you look if you sat there and spent, let's say, a 7th-round pick on Tavon Austin last year, and then you ended up picking up Keenan Allen on the waiver wire, and Keenan Allen more than doubled the production of what Tavon Austin put up as a rookie? And this is not just one thing. I'm not picking on one player because this is a trend. This is a pattern. Like you look at the 2014 NFL draft class at wide receiver, you had 5 players taken in the first round: Watkins, Evans, Beckham Jr., Cooks, and Benjamin. You're going to see people drafting Sammy Watkins like he's going to put up 1,100 or 1,200 yards and 9 or 10 touchdowns as a rookie. And I'm here to tell you flat out, based off of history, that ain't happening. He might be the outlier. He might be the exception to the rule, but it would still be the exception to the rule. And in fantasy football, by and large, I like to play it based off of the numbers, go off of the law of averages. And the law of averages suggests that Sammy Watkins is A, not going to have 10 touchdowns this year, B, not going to approach 1,000 yards this year as a rookie, and C, will get outscored by at least 1 or 2 wide receivers drafted later than him in the 2014 NFL draft, and 1 or 2 of those players might both come from the 2nd or 3rd rounds. I look at Mike Evans. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He's already no better than the number 2 option in that offense. You've got uncertainty at the quarterback position. Who knows what you'll get? Odell Beckham Jr., competition at the position, with Cruz and Ruben Randall. In fact, Eli Manning's throwing him the ball. Out of the 5 wide receivers taken in the first round, I might suggest that a Brandon Cooks or a Kelvin Benjamin deserves more consideration right away, because Kelvin Benjamin's going to get all types of opportunities getting the ball thrown to him by Cam Newton, because Cam won't have a choice. And Brandon Cooks is a weapon that could be deployed all over the place by the New Orleans Saints. But Brandon Cooks could have a similar type of season to a Tavon Austin, even though I expect he will be utilized better because Sean Payton is a better offensive mind than what they have in St. Louis, and he'll understand how to get Cooks the ball. But you're going to see these guys be overdrafted, being drafted in the middle of a draft. And all the while, guys like Marquise Lee and Jordan Matthews and Paul Richardson, guys in good situations, guys that could potentially step up right away, will either be drafted very late or not drafted at all. They'll end up sitting on your waiver wire. You'll be able to pick them up, or you'll miss the boat. Somebody else will pick them up, and you'll laugh all the way to the fantasy football playoffs, if not a league championship, as a guy like a Marquise Lee or a Jordan Matthews outproduces a Sammy Watkins or a Mike Evans or an Odell Beckham Jr. as a rookie, and players that took, Watkins, Evans, or Beckham or Cooks very high are on the outside looking in come the Fantasy Football League Championship. Do not overdraft these fantasy football wide receiver rookies. Just don't do it. The evidence is there to clearly support that this is a bad idea, that this is folly. I understand that you want to be sleuthy about it. You see this fresh face. It's the uncertainty. It's the unknown. You could do all types of great possibilities. But more likely than not, as a rookie, they're going to underwhelm and they're going to disappoint. Don't be that guy. Don't be the one that's stuck with multiple rookie wide receivers on your fantasy football roster. Don't sit there and say, I'm going to take Sammy Watkins and Mike Evans and I'm going to laugh my way to a championship. No, you're going to laugh your way all the way to the toilet bowl in your league, I promise you. So again, I emphasize, wait. Because if anything, you look at last year, you'd have been a lot better off taking second-year wide receivers that maybe only showed glimpses in their rookie year. Guys like Josh Gordon. Imagine if you had drafted Josh Gordon, even knowing he had that 2-game suspension, and you stayed away from a Tavon Austin. Josh Gordon in some leagues wasn't even drafted because of that suspension, or he was drafted a lot later than Tavon Austin, DeAndre Hopkins, or even Cordell Patterson. How foolish do people feel now about that? Alshon Jeffrey, I know in most every league I was in, was taken after Tavon Austin, DeAndre Hopkins. Who would you rather have? T.Y. Hilton was taken after Tavon Austin, in some cases DeAndre Hopkins. Kendall Wright, Michael Floyd. All these second-year guys that I named had 1,000-plus yard receiving seasons that Tavon Austin, DeAndre Hopkins, and Cordero Patterson didn't have. The bottom line is stay away from those wide receivers that were drafted in the first round, especially early on in your draft. If you're sitting there in round 5 or 6 and you see Sammy Watkins on the board and you're worried that somebody else is going to take him if you don't take him then, maybe you need to just roll the dice and let somebody else potentially take that risk and let them take him, because you don't want any of that. I promise you.